Hello everybody, this is Spets, and today I'm going to be doing a rundown on patch 5.6 for League of Legends. A little background about myself as a gamer and as a player. I started playing League of Legends around the time that Cassiopeia Trundle came out, maybe the beginning of 2011. And ever since I've been very passionate about the competitive scene. I've been following it ever since. So without further ado, we're just going to begin. First champion that got a buff this patch is Aatrox. At first, so I'll just read it. His ultimate, Massacre, now grants 20% of maximum blood well for each enemy hit. Now at first that doesn't seem like a big deal because, oh, big deal, he's just going to get more blood well and when he dies he'll have more health. Now that's the first thing you have to notice, but you also have to look at his passive, which also gives him attack speed as his blood well fills up. Now this is huge because most of his damage is through auto attacks, and that's actually part of the problem with Aatrox. He relies too much on auto attacks to deal damage and like do something in fights. His E is very low base damage, and you don't build too much AD on Aatrox if you want to be successful with him. And his Q, I mean, it's a fairly high cooldown for a gap closer, but it does knock up. But again, it doesn't have much damage, so he relies on the attack speed, and this will give him a lot more attack speed and a lot more survivability when he does pop his blood well. So it's a fairly good buff, and I think maybe players like Freddy in Europe of SK, he might play him, but I don't know. I'll have to see. His E is still a little too weak. They nerfed it a little too hard the one time, and it'll be tough to come back from that. But this is a good step in the right direction. So we'll see how this goes. The next champion is Amumu. This is actually a bug that I noticed while playing him, and it felt off. Like I didn't think it should be this way, but like again, fixed a bug where Despair would not toggle off when Amumu ran out of mana. You could go all the way to 0 mana and Despair would still be on. Like this wouldn't be useful in most cases just because you need mana for your other abilities, because Q is a really good CC and gap closer, but it is really nice for just like farming in the jungle. Like it's ridiculous how much damage you can do with Despair on just farming. So this is actually a needed change. Like it wasn't meant to be. The next champion is Annie. Her ultimate, Tibbers. Now I guess the immolation, if you want to call it that. I don't think it's called that for Tibbers, but the AoE damage has been reduced at all ranks except for level 16. So it is a nerf, but a very slight nerf, because Tibbers also got a buff in the previous, I think it was the previous patch, where her E Molten Shield would proc on Tibbers as well, and would give him like more tankiness, all that stuff. But really you use Tibbers as an initiate for the stun, the damage. This is just like an added benefit, and it's not a huge deal for Annie. The next change is for Bard. This is actually, I was looking through it and I didn't see it as like that great of a change. We'll just start from the very beginning. Okay, so the recommended items have been changed to update. This really means nothing. Bard's recommended items have been updated to reflect a more supportive playstyle. Honestly, most of the recommended items aren't that great in League of Legends, so big deal. This change right here, the Q damage increase, increase of 5 at level 1 and 25 at level 5. Not a big like difference. Like you don't use this Q for damage, and this is still a fairly low base damage on an ability. So that's not the problem with this Q. The Q, in my opinion, is either the range or the cooldown. You use it for utility. You don't use it for damage. So this doesn't really make any sense. I know they're trying to move him in the right direction, but I honestly think people just haven't figured him out yet, and don't know the potential that his abilities have. Like Magical Journey is insanely good if you know how to use it. Like you can bait teams so hard into like choke points. It's just like a really good ability overall. Q you use for the CC, plain and simple, not the damage, so not a big deal. Another change is that there's some, like, I would call these just like more bugs, that he could tether his Q to like Demacian Standard, Syndra Orbs, which is ridiculous, and Acceleration Gate. and wards. Like some of these are just weird. They shouldn't be in the game. So this is like a needed removal. Magical Journey, the cooldown is decreased at all levels. This is actually really good. A 6% decrease at level 1. That's actually insane. This is a great tool in my opinion for moving around the map. In my opinion, it's best for rotational play. So let's say you help your team push down a tower or push the minions in one lane, and while the other team is heading over there to stop the push on the tower, you just rotate to middle lane or whatever and just take that tower. I think he just hasn't, the players haven't seen the potential in his abilities yet, and I think Magical Journey is one of the biggest ones. Now Magical Journey is also easier to click on, which I think is good. Sometimes you would have to like really click on it, and sometimes it just wouldn't work, especially if it's like the portal entrance is on the far side of the map and you're heading this way, so like towards yourself on the map. It just was really hard to click and it was just be awkward. So that's a good change. Allies that go through Magical Journey will grant Bard an assist, which is nice because if let's say you're helping them to travel to a different location to get a kill, he deserves that assist in my opinion, the same way like you would heal someone and you deserve an assist for that. So yeah. And also you can do that for clones and some like, I guess that's like not a big deal, but like for like Shaco, Hallucination, LeBlanc, her passive, Mordekaiser ult, and Yorick ult. So not a big deal, just a small quality of life change so you can work with pets or clones, I guess they call it here. And let's see, and the ultimate change, Temper Fate, neutral monsters will now no longer have their health reset while under stasis. Again, not a big deal, just like a small change, not a really buff or anything. It's just, I guess it's just like an odd interaction that shouldn't happen. Okay, so the next champion is Cassiopeia, and I was reading this. I guess you guys can read this yourself, but it's just an overall decrease in her late game AP just because of the way percentage increases interacted. It was like it used to be additively instead of multiplicatively, so she would have more damage overall in the very late game. Honestly, she could reach, as like with some builds which weren't really ideal, you could reach 1300 AP, which is about absolutely insane, but overall she could, like in just like a regular like standard build like Zhonya's, Ryze's, like defensive items and like a death cap, you could still two-shot carries with your E. It was absolutely insane in the late game once you got full stacks and everything. You're still going to be able to like 3-shot probably. It's only a 12% decrease in her bonus AP. I still don't know why people haven't caught on with this. I know EasyHoon in Korea of SK Telecom has been playing her a little, and I know I saw Power Evil play it maybe I think it was last week or this week, and honestly it's insane the amount of damage she does. People need to catch on. I know she's a little shorter range than some of the other APs like Xerath, and like she doesn't have mobility of LeBlanc, but her damage is absolutely insane, especially if you have a comp that helps. Like with some of these frontline tanks that are popping up now, she absolutely would murder them even. So I don't know. This is probably a necessary change. She's absolutely ridiculous. People just haven't caught on. Once they do, I think she'll still be extremely strong. It's not a big deal. Elise, I haven't seen her in a long time. Kind of glad and kind of like sad. A lot of like the OP picks that occur in competitive, it's like they're just so strong that you only see them. Like Lee Sin, Elise, and Evelynn for a time were the only things that you saw, but it's kind of sad to see them go completely. But we'll see. So base movement speed in human form has decreased by 5 points. Don't really understand that. I guess it's in the context of this, where her base movement speed in spider form is even higher. I honestly think this wasn't necessary. The 330, the decrease in 5. It's not a huge deal, but it's still not necessary. So I don't see the point in that. Elise can now so repel is the next one. Elise can now right click while in the air to descend on a target in addition to pressing E again. Just a quality of life change, not a buff anything. Just makes it a little easier. And Cocoon has a faster missile speed. Again, this won't help Elise, I don't think. There have been a little too many nerfs to her. Her E in Spider form, Repel. The decrease in range was huge. The decrease in her damage was huge. Overall, I don't see her coming back. Even with her percentage damage on her Q, and with tanks coming into the fray, I still don't see her coming back. We'll see though. It's too early to tell, and I mean anything can happen. You can't just tell just from patch notes. So yeah. Evelynn. Evelynn stealths faster late game. W now works off of spellcasts. So let's just go through these. Passive Shadow Walk. So just a decrease in how long it takes for her to go in stealth as the game moves on. Honestly, 6 seconds is a long time. If you think about it, let's say she goes in for a gank and she pops out, she tries to do her damage, she gets counter ganked. She's screwed. She can't use her invisibility. Her passive is absolutely useless in that case. This will actually help in the late game, in my opinion. So she becomes more elusive. So sort of like how if you guys have played Dota, or if you haven't, there's a hero called Ricky. He would go in and out of stealth, and he would just be really difficult to deal with unless you had invis detection. So this is similar to that, where she would go in and out of stealth, and like 3 seconds it's more manageable now. Like if you go into a fight, something goes wrong, you just get out of there with your W, come back, they don't see where you are, and then you can try to do more damage. Again, this isn't a huge change, but it's a nice buff, and it won't increase her strength by much, because honestly Evelynn is in a very bad state right now. The next change is to her W, Dark Frenzy. Spell hits no longer passively grant stacking movement speed. A nerf. Again, I don't think it was needed. If you're going to buff her, just buff her. This isn't going to make her insanely powerful. Like, her damage has been nerfed quite a lot. So that was one of the main strengths of Evelynn when she first got reworked. That's why she was played in the mid lane by like players like Alex Each. You would see him like get DFG and absolutely burst people down. It was insane. But now, like, everything has been nerfed about her. You don't need to remove this to give her something else. Like, this is nice. Spell hits now lower Dark Frenzy's cooldown by 1 second. It's still a 15-second cooldown. So don't make it seem as if it's like a huge change. You don't need to remove this. I know they're trying to be cautious, but I don't think it was necessary. Still not going to be competitive viable, especially with tanks coming around. I mean, her ult does do percentage damage, but it's not enough, in my opinion. We'll see though. There might be some more quality of life changes and like buffs later on. We'll have to see. So Galio, E's cooldown gets lower with rank. So yeah, Righteous Gust, which is his movement speed and its slight damage, has been. It's a slight nerf in the level 1, which is actually it's not a big deal in the large scheme of things, but this is at level 1 through most of the early laning phase until about like level 8. When you get level 2, it doesn't equal out. So overall it's a buff though, like no doubt it's a buff. 9 seconds. I'm honestly with all like the assassins that are coming back into play and kind of like the poke mages, I'm surprised I haven't seen more Galio. I know Janna makes his life a living hell, but with the buff to his ultimate recently, I honestly think he's in a better, like, if you guys haven't seen it, I think it was either last patch or the patch before that, his ult is no longer reduced, the taunt is no longer reduced by tenacity, so you no longer are you able to just flash out after you get tenacity. You can't flash out. Unless someone is outside of the ultimate to interrupt, you can't flash out, which means full damage, full CC. Now again, that's why I don't understand why Galio hasn't been played more, especially like top lane. I can imagine his TP ganks with like flash initiates would be really insane. And I mean, I guess it was because of the Athene's nerf. It was really painful to him, like the mana regen. It was just, I don't know. I just heard a lot of Athene's users in general. But we'll see. With Athene's changes that we'll look down at the bottom, it might help him. We'll see. But I think he does have, especially in solo queue, I think he has a place. His damage isn't weak. I mean, his Q base damage is like 300 at level 5, which is really high with the 0.6 AP ratio, low cooldown. Things like that. Like, he has a lot going for him, but we'll see. His W is insane as well, with the amount of magic resistant healing and armor it gives him and other players. Like, I honestly think he is in a good place. People just haven't caught on yet. So we'll see about that. We'll talk about the Athene changes too. Irelia, E damage lowered. I don't know how I feel about this. The damage wasn't what really was making Equilibrium Strike really powerful. It was more the fact that it was a 2-second CC on a fairly low cooldown, especially because a lot of people are going Frozen Heart nowadays, just because they're maxing E, getting Frozen Heart with Triforce. And it's just like, she has good damage and just really annoying CC, especially if it's the stun instead of the slow. I think this is like another problem with the way Riot Games kind of balances. They think just like things like this will make it better. I mean, it reduces her damage, but that's not the problem with her. Like, it's the CC. It's a really low cooldown CC. I don't know. I think this is just in the wrong direction. I'm okay with a nerf to Irelia. I don't think it's absolutely necessary because there are places where she's just not that great. But the damage was not a necessary nerf. It is a high base damage. 280 is pretty high, but it was the CC that made her really strong. So I don't know. It's weird. Katarina, base health and health regen, nerfs and health per level up. I don't really understand that. Okay, so the base health is reduced by 50. That's pretty big in the early laning phase. That might be the difference between life or death in an all in. Her health per level does get better, but let me think. 3 times 18. Let me get my calculator over here. Clear this out. 3 times 18. 54. So it equals out in the end about, but it does hurt our early laning phase. Health regen, this is actually pretty big if you really think about it. That's a decent health regen, and that's reduced by quite a lot percentage wise. So it will hurt her early laning phase, but I guess it does. I don't know. I don't think it's necessary since she's not really a great pick overall. Maybe in solo queue where she can snowball. She's too easily shut down in a competitive or in a more organized team play kind of scenario. Too easy to interrupt her ultimate. But again, we'll see the changes. I'm not too much of a Katarina player, so I can't comment too much. I haven't had too much problems with her. But again, we'll see. Karthus, basic attack is less bad. I guess so you can CS with your auto attacks. His auto attack range is really, really bad. Most players pick Karthus nowadays, especially in competitive, because of how long range his late waste is and how easy it is to farm. Like some people have said, Karthus is actually a counter to LeBlanc. I know Froggen has said that oftentimes, and it's just because he has such a long range on his Q. It's really hard to zone him out unless his creep wave is at your tower in mid lane. You're not gonna stop him from farming, or if you have just so much pressure and you're so far ahead as like a LeBlanc. It's just really hard to stop him from farming. So I guess it's like just a small little. It's not really a big deal. It doesn't really matter, honestly. It's just the auto attack improve. Okay, LeBlanc. R's copied spells deal less damage. Let's see. So overall, like just a damage nerf to LeBlanc on her ultimate. So not her regular abilities, which I think is fine. She is strong right now. And I feel part of the reason is because Athene's was nerfed in the new season. I mean, it's just like a less efficient item, so champions have less magic resist in the mid lane. I think she was always powerful, even after the removal of her silence. Like, her damage was still ridiculously high. She still had a lot of pressure in lane. This is just like, I guess, to put her in a better spot so she isn't as overbearing. I mean, the DFG nerfs did hurt her a little, but she didn't need it again. This wasn't needed, but again, she's still going to be in just a fine spot, to be honest. So not a big deal, but we'll see. I still think people like Faker and Pawn and a lot of like the LeBlanc players are still going to play her very often. Okay, R does more damage when popping Lux's passive. This was always intended but not always functional. Okay, so I didn't even know that this happened. I don't know what they mean by it was intended. Maybe I just didn't look at the tooltip. But so now that her passive procs on final spark, which is actually really nice. Maybe I was just like completely blind to this because I never remember this happening. I remember it was always auto attacks, which is a problem with her passive late game. You're not going to auto attack people to proc the passive. Which is why Lichbane was kind of a bad item, because you don't want to get in range as Lux. I mean, she's an immobile mage that wants to stay at range. So this is actually really nice. This is actually a buff to her damage. Let's say you hit a few people in a team fight with E, you proc your ultimate, their health is going to disappear. I don't know if this will... This might actually bring her... Like, I know Froggen is a fan of Lux at times. This might bring her into viability, but I doubt it. She's still too immobile. That's what a lot of mages have a problem with. Like, Xerath is one of those... He's not an exception. He still has a problem like with hard engage comps, but again, we'll see. I think this will put her in a better place. I don't know about competitive viability, just because a lot of her damage is in her E and ult, and her AP ratios and like the damage on her E isn't even that high. So we'll see. Maybe this will push her over the edge to be competitive viable, but we'll see. It's a 0.2 AP ratio, so I can see it happening if the player is good enough. Nidalee, nothing to see here. So I think this is just talking about how they think Nidalee is in a good spot. We'll just read it, I guess. Nid's a polarizing champion where when she succeeds, generates more hate posts. Okay, so just talking about how everyone hates her right now. I mean, she is so annoying to deal with in the jungle, just because of how much damage she does if she lands a spear. I think in organized team play, she's a little more manageable, especially if you have I don't know, vision of her and you know where she is. She's still really strong, obviously, and I think they think now that tanks are going to be more a part of the competitive scene, she won't be as strong. I think she's still going to be really strong regardless. I remember watching a game, I think it was Gambit versus Elements, where Shook was playing Sejuani and Diamond was playing Nidalee, and the power difference early on is just huge. So she's still going to be strong. I think they're just saying that we're watching you, Nidalee, so watch out for a nerf maybe if she is still too powerful. We'll see. I think her jungle clear is still going to be insane. So that's one of her strengths. Her damage is going to be insane early game, poke late game. But I think they're thinking of nerfing her soon, so we'll see. Not a fan, since I do think she has her counterplay, but she is really annoying right now. Nocturne, aura cooldown down. I don't know why this is decreased. Paranoia at level 1. That's a 30-second decrease. So if you haven't noticed, that's a 3-minute cooldown. I know they did this a while ago when they were nerfing globals like Karthus ultimate, Shen ultimate, stuff like that, and it's just like a high cooldown. This is a little more manageable, but I think one of the problems with Nocturne now is just the range of early ults are really they're not that great. He is a good late game threat just because of his damage on his Q is fairly high, but I don't know, he just can't survive like tanks do when they dive. So that's going to be one of his problems. His damage is still great. Like, I mean, if you get ahead as Nocturne, I can see how he'd be really good. But overall, this is just like a nice change to early pressure, which he needs, because that's a ridiculous cooldown. That is absurd. So yeah, we'll see. I hope to see Nocturne. I really like seeing him, especially how people. I know I remember seeing Cacao play him and how you use the vision decrease of his ultimate. It's just, you can do a lot of cool things with it. So we'll see it. Quinn, bug fixes and general improvements to E. So let's look at this. Evil got the reset. I like the Scar reference. Now resets Quinn's basic attack timer upon landing. That's nice. It'll make proccing her passive much easier. Fixed a bug where Harrier was occasionally not applied by Vault. That's really weird. I guess I haven't played enough Quinn to notice that, but yeah, that's good that they fixed that. Fixed an issue where Vault could sometimes move Quinn out of her basic attack range when casted on a close range target. That's part of the reason why she's not played. Her range is kind of off, and it does put her far back enough. Like, her E is really annoying to face as a melee champion because it slows and it interrupts them. It's just really annoying. But this is actually good and bad in a sense, because I think it actually reduces the range you get when you E, but again, you're still in range to auto attack, so you proc your passive much more often. This is what all these changes look like. Vaulting off an enemy to pass through terrain is now easier. Okay, so just like a lot of nice changes to her E. I still think she's not the greatest, simply because her ultimate, which is something that a lot of AD carries rely on now. I mean, Graves with his ultimate, Jinx with her ultimate, just huge damage. Her ult requires her to be in the fray, which is good for cleanup, but you don't want to be in range as a ranged AD carry. I mean, like, obviously, right? You don't want to be in melee range. It is good for like picking people off, of course, but I don't know. It's just really dangerous right now. I think her other abilities are actually really good. We'll see though. The 525 range hurts her, but I mean, Graves is still really popular. Sivir has a 500 range, and he's popular. Lucian is popular, but we'll see. I think her blind is something that people haven't looked at too much. I don't think this will make her viable, like on the level of Graves or Corki or even Lucian, but we'll see. Rammus, Q cost down. The Rammus has certainly been... Okay, so I don't know if this is really necessary, but it is a nice change to Rammus. 110 mana for a tank late game is... It's not a big deal, since unless you get like a Frozen Heart, but it does kind of pose a problem. Really, I think they're just trying to move tanks forward. Cinder Hulk really helped. I know Rammus champions like Amumu, they were really helped by the Cinder Hulk. I mean, Sejuani obviously, but she was always really good, in my opinion. So we'll see how this goes. I think this won't be a big deal though. It's just like a nice mana buff. Actually, that's a 30 mana buff. That's just really good at late game, but yeah, we'll see. Ryze's Q damage up. So yeah, ever since Ryze kind of was seen in almost every game in Worlds, he got a pretty big nerf to his Q. I don't think this will completely bring him back. I know this might bring like some players to play him, like Dade. I know was a big fan of him. But we'll have to see. The thing you have to think about with Ryze and why it was such a big nerf when they nerfed his Q was because of how often you used it in like a team fight. The cooldown of Q would be up like constantly, especially with a Frozen Heart. So this 15 damage buff is actually more like a 30 or a 45 damage buff because of how often you would use it in a team fight compared to, let's say, a regular skill of another mage. So you have to keep that in mind, and also the AoE damage. So this is a nice buff. We'll have to see. Sejuani, W damage down, aura slows less when you fail to land the stun. Okay, so I think these changes are good. The percentage damage on W was pretty high, 12%. I think Maokai's is like at 12 or 13% at max rank for his W. So, and it also added an AoE. You have to keep that in mind. So this isn't the only portion of her W damage. So I think this is needed just so she wasn't over the top, because she was just outright better even before Cinder Hulk. People were just not playing her. Like, her early game was weak, but I mean her team fight was absolutely insane with all the AoE damage and like the percentage damage that she was able to do. It was just insane. Glacial Prison now slows when it misses, so you have to keep that in mind. When it misses, that's the only time when this matters. Like 90% slow in an AoE if you miss is huge. I mean, when you hit, it won't matter. It's still gonna AoE and lock everyone down. That's still why you get the ultimate. If you miss, you shouldn't be like rewarded for a 90% slow if you miss. So I think this is a good change, just so she's more in line with other tank junglers and just junglers in general after the Cinder Hulk change. So I think that's a good change. Singed. E deals max health damage. Okay. So I was looking at this, and at first I thought this was going to be like a nerf to Singed, but after I did the math, it's actually a buff overall. So let's bring out the calculator. Do I have that out? Let's open that up. Okay, so let's just use level 1 values and like let's say level 18 values just for comparisons. We can just use just health values overall. So let's say at level 1, champions have between 500 to 600 health, sometimes more or less, not too much less than 500 depending on the champion. So let's use 550 at level 1 as a health value just for like average champion. So 6% of that times 6% is 33. 33 plus 50 would be 83. So it's actually a little more damage just based on health. So right now it's about the same. Let's go to the final value though. Let's open that up again. Let's use just like a carries health at level 18, roughly 2,000. You could say it's more or less just depending on what items they get. If they get a Banshees, it's going to be more than this. If they don't, it might be slightly less or about 2,000. It just depends on the carry. So let's use 2,000 as just like a base. 2,000 times 0.08 is 160, and then you just add, what is it, 110. It's actually higher. This is just for carries. Now, if you, let's say for tanks, 3,000 is a decent amount of health late game. Nowadays, it's going to be even higher. I've seen with Cinder Hulk, 4,000 plus is not too hard to reach. It's kind of insane in the health values you can reach. Let's say 4,000 not even. Let's just do 3,500 or like 3,000 even. We'll try that after for late game tanks. And then you multiply that by 0.08 for 8%, 280 damage. This is without the base damage. That is really high. And this is even without the AP ratio added on, which is the same at all values, so it doesn't change in that sense. But that is a huge boost to his damage. I think people might start playing. I know he's going to be played more in solo queue, that's for sure. I don't know too much about it in competitive. This will increase his damage to a hefty amount, in my opinion. So we might see him in competitive, but the main problem with Singed right now is that after his tenacity was removed from his ultimate, he has a big problem getting to his targets. But now that he has percentage damage on his E, he might just target the tanks right in front of him. But again, kiting is really the biggest problem for Singed right now. The tenacity removal was huge. Even though he did get a boost to his ultimate stats to like 80 at max rank, it wasn't enough. So I think the tenacity nerfed him too much, but this will help in his damage for sure. So I want to see what people will do with Singed now, since his E damage is huge. They also helped him with I think it was the buff that they made with the interaction with Fling and Mega Adhesive, his W. So I hope to see Singed again, not in my games hopefully, but hopefully in competitive. They'll start playing Singed, maybe Dyrus. I doubt it though, because the tenacity changed to his ultimate back. I don't even know when. Really hurt him. So we'll see though. Sion. Q hurts monsters less. E pass through damage down. Okay. If you've ever played against Sion lane, you absolutely hated yourself unless you just like snowballed on him. He was just so annoying to deal with. His E used to be even lower mana cost. Now it's a little more manageable, so that isn't a big deal. But like the damage it did was it's just annoying. It's still gonna be really good. His E especially, because of the 2.5. It's a 2.5% It's a 2.5 second slow at all ranks. It's like absurd. I don't think people understand why his E was good. Like, it was the damage and the slow, so he can just get free damage with his W. You can just auto you if you want, if he wants. He was just a really annoying laner overall. This will make it a little more manageable. Q decimating smash. I think this is more of like a nerf to his jungling, because with Cinder Hulk and his W, he would get absolutely insane health values. This just slows him down, but it doesn't really matter that much. I mean, his Q still does a really high amount of damage when fully charged, even on minions, 80%. It's not a big deal. So he's still going to be used in jungle, still going to be used top lane. Just makes him a little more manageable with trades and with the jungling. He's still going to be insane with Cinder Hulk. The amount of damage he does with his W, because it scales off his health with Cinder Hulk and his W, is insane. So we're still going to be seeing him. He's just more manageable now. Twitch buffs, which is something I've been looking for a while. I honestly think he's still in a decent spot, mainly because of lane swaps. His late game damage is what makes him so good. I don't know so much with a lot of the diving tanks now, but even still, actually no, I take that back. He would be even better now, just because of how tanks have become more popular and how he's just like a natural blade user, and his just like the natural damage he does with his ult and his Q up. He's I think gonna come back. It's gonna be, I don't know. I feel like just professional players are just scared of playing him just because he is so risky. He has no mobility. His Q has been nerfed when he takes damage, so it's like 6-second delay on his invis, so you can't use it for safety. I mean, people were still getting, like, I remember a game where Imp, I think it was Samsung White versus Blue, where Imp died like 4 or 5 times in laning phase. Or no, this was Deft. He died 4 or 5 times in laning phase and still came back to do an absurd amount of damage because he's Twitch. His ultimate is insane. He does so much damage with his expunge. I don't know. I think he's going to come back. This isn't a huge buff, but it's just, it helps his laning slightly. He's still going to be like destroyed by champions like Graves in lane, so he's still going to have that problem. But with lane swaps, I think he's going to be used more often. He's actually been used in like LPL, and I don't know about, I haven't seen him in LCK games. Maybe I've missed that, but I know in LPL both Imp and Deft have used him. So I don't know. I think maybe other regions, especially during MSI, we'll see the power of Twitch, especially with the tanks now. He's just so good at like just like powering through them. So we'll see. Depends on if they're willing to risk it. Veigar, passive regen up, Q range up, E stops dash. Okay, so I was actually looking at these while I was playing on PBE. I think these are steps in the right direction. The thing with this was that like I was looking at this, it was 1.5% increase to his mana regen for every 1% of missing mana. Now, to put it into context, this value right here was old Athene's passive. So that was really good. That's what people used to get Athenes for the mana regen, and obviously for the like the magic resist and the other stuff, and cooldown. But like this was so good for sustaining your mana. His is even better now. So you just have to put that into context. It makes his mana pool much more manageable, especially in the late game because of how mana regen scales up with levels. So this is going to be really nice in the late game, and you have to put it in the context of all his other changes. So there's a decrease in the W mana cost, his ultimate mana cost, and it just makes his mana problems much more manageable, I guess is the best word to say. So I guess this is something he will benefit from, but with the changes to Athene's, I think it won't be as big of a deal anymore. But we'll have to see. It was mainly a buff because Athene's was weaker, but now that it's stronger, it might not be as big of a buff. But we'll see. This is actually the thing that I was looking at in PB the most, just because it makes his laning phase a little safer, and he can't be bullied out as easily. So this is a 950 range. That's insane. I think, I'm not 100% sure, but I think Ezreal Q is 1150, which is, I mean, it's a really safe laning tool. This is even better just because it passes through minions, and just overall just a nice buff, so he can deal damage from a range, which is nice. Event Horizon, enemy dashes through Event Horizon's wall will stop them instead. This is actually, in my opinion, what it should have always been. If you remember, if you've ever played Veigar before, when Event Horizon was instant, you could use Event Horizon on someone, and if they timed it right, or if they wanted to, they could just like dash out of Event Horizon and not stop at Event Horizon. So that was a problem where people would just get out of range, and it would just be difficult to deal with them, just because it wouldn't do it. Would still stun them, but it wouldn't stop their movement. Now it stops them at Event Horizon. So like champions like LeBlanc, let me see, Ahri. I'm thinking of very popular ones now. Those are the two main ones I can think of right now. Champions like Zed and like Ezreal, who are popular in the mid lane, are still going to be able to dash through it, just because of how theirs is more a blink instead of a dash, so they instantly appear where they are. Also Kassadin, but we haven't seen too much Kassadin lately. But champions like those won't be affected, but like Ahri and LeBlanc will be affected. I still don't know, because his Event Horizon is such a, in like the grand scheme of things, it's a fairly long delay. I'm just comparing it to like other things like Swain W, which is a shorter one, and I don't know. It's just like it kind of takes away from his strength overall. I'm not going to talk about like previous changes, but it is a definite buff. So this will be nice. I know. I mean, I could just think of like one specific example where a Amumu hit me with a Q, and I stunned him, and he stopped midway, so he couldn't ult me to initiate. So like things like that will be really useful. Okay, Vel'Koz. So his ult can now cancel. So Vel'Koz can now cancel his ultimate by taking Thresh Lantern. Okay. Honestly, this isn't a huge deal. I don't know. Maybe they're just trying to put him into the right direction. Let me read this real quick. In the specific interaction of Vel'Koz. So I guess maybe they're trying to like make a dual kind of like synergy between Vel'Koz, Thresh. It's not a huge deal. Vel'Koz is still kind of just like a weaker version of Xerath. His poke is weaker. His range is lower, and his ultimate is similar to Xerath's. I'm pretty sure Vel'Koz has more damage potential with his ultimate, especially with his passive. But the thing is, the range is so much different, and they both root themselves in place to use their ultimates. I do think Vel'Koz is fairly strong for the amount of like CC and damage potential he can have because of his passive along with his ultimate. He can absolutely like murder team fights. But again, just like his immobility is similar to Xerath's, but Xerath has more long range and more damage overall, except for when it comes to their ultimates. So this won't change anything, to be honest. Let's be honest. This won't change anything. Xerath is just the better Vel'Koz right now. Yorick feel improvements for Q. Let's look at this. Yorick now uses his critical strike animation when hitting people with Omen of War. That means absolutely nothing, let's be honest. Range, an increase of 50. This is actually really nice. We actually just saw, I think it was Team 8 versus, I'm pretty sure, no wait, I forget which team used it recently, but Yorick was just recently, okay no, it was Unicorns of Love against Fnatic. They used Yorick, Cassiopeia. I mean, I think Yorick is actually in a better place now than people think he is. He deals better with lane swaps than a lot of champions. He's similar to Maokai, where he has a way of farming from range, and once he gets his tier and gets it stacking, he's actually in a really good position. The problem with him is that he's kind of vulnerable. He has no mobility early on, but honestly, people need to take a little bit better note of him, especially in like these really hyper carry type situations with like Cassiopeia, Karthus. Like it's still a viable strategy. People I think have just like not looked into Yorick like and what he offers to a team. Like if you guys haven't seen that game, go watch the I'm pretty sure it was the Unicorns of Love Fnatic game where like Power of Evil went insane. He would just get ultimate by Yorick, and even if you killed him, he would just still like rampage through a fight, and you can't do anything. You just have to run. You cannot fight that, and it's absolutely powerful. And I think Yorick is actually in a better place than people think. This is just like a small. I think this will be better. It's like similar to how they changed Mordekaiser's Q, so it's not as easy to kite him. I still think he's definitely viable. People are underestimating his power. We'll see though. Maybe I'm wrong. Ziggs, Q cost down. This is actually a really nice buff to Ziggs, especially in the context of how often he can Q. So it's a really low cooldown, and in the context of the Athene's changes. So once we go down to the bottom, you guys will see what I mean. I think Ziggs will be seeing more play. I think originally he stopped seeing play when he had some minor nerfs to him. Once everyone was playing him for his wave clear and stalling potential, and because of the Athene's nerfs. But I think he'll start seeing more play nowadays. But we'll talk more about that when we go down to Athene's. We're buffing everything. Okay. Okay, so general health per level increase 71 to 77. Okay, so I don't know if you guys noticed this. Let me open my calculator again. But Zilean, I'm pretty sure, has the lowest base health at level 18. It's absolutely absurd how low it is. It's like 1700 or something. Let me check just to be sure. Let's open. I think Azir might have lower, but I could be wrong. Azir law wiki. Okay, no, Azir, no, okay, not even close. So let's look at Zilean. Okay, this is before, I don't think they updated yet. 1706. That's disgustingly low. That's like, oh, I don't even know what to say. 499 at level 1 too. I'm pretty sure Shalona has slightly lower, but her level 18 health is higher. He is extremely squishy. That's the best way to put it. This will help him. It's like an 8 times, where's the calculator? 8 times 18 overall. So around that, I don't think, yeah, so 144 more health at late game, which is useful, just plain and simple. I don't know if I have to do times 17 because they already calculate the level 1, but whatever. But yeah, he definitely needs that. It's absurd how low his health is, but I guess it's because he has an ultimate that can revive. No, I don't think that's a good reason. But he kind of needs this. It's a nice change. Make him a little more durable late game instead of just instantly dying if he uses ultimate on someone else. Q, time bomb. So this is, I think, what should have been. It should have been kept at 0.9 ability power from the very beginning. They nerfed his damage, so like they sort of buffed his Q. Not really. They made it a skill shot, and they lowered the damage and the base damage all at once when they were trying to make him better, which didn't really make sense. I understand because they want to make more like interactivity and make his laning phase not as like oppressive because his base damage was so high, but they nerfed his base damage and his ability power. Like his base damage won't, like that's the nerf that I understand for laning phase as a support, but as if you're gonna play him as a carry, which is less useful now because of how his passive works, it's only within a certain range instead of global, then you're not gonna, like, why would you nerf his AP ratios for that? So I think this is absolutely necessary. His AP ratios should have never been nerfed to 0.8 since it's only damage ability. So I think this is a good change. I don't know if it will be enough to bring him back into viability, but we'll have to see. I don't think it'll be enough to bring him into viability if people play tanks and only tanks, because oftentimes you see a top laner with more utility like Lissandra or Maokai, not as much damage. And if you have a mid laner that has lower damage, you're going to be only focusing on your AD carry as a damage threat, unless you have a carry jungler similar to how Kha'Zix was a carry jungler before. maybe Rek'Sai with some more damage builds might be a viable option, but unless people don't focus simply on tanks, he won't be played. Like, it's just too little damage compared to other mid laners right now. So we'll have to see though. We have to look at all these other changes too. So he got a mana buff to his level 5 Q, really necessary. Athene's nerfs hurt him so much. We'll see though. We have to look at it like the context of everything. Mana buffs to rewind and mana buffs to time warp. So just everything is just lower in cost, which is great. Something that he needed after Athene's nerf. And now that Athene's is even buffed more, we might actually see him in the mid lane again. I'll be honest, like if you have looked at him, his Q double bomb in a team fight, if you get it off, is absolutely insane. It stuns in such a huge AoE, you can just win the fight off simply that. So long as you have enough damage. You have to remember that. If you have enough damage, like on like your AD carry or whatever, you can absolutely clean up fights with that. So people have to keep that in mind when they think of Zilean, because he's different now. Like his Q double bomb is absurd. But I won't talk about like changes in the past. W rewind. Let's see. So just a general buff early game. You usually keep this at level 1 except for until 7 and then after level 9. So this is actually a nice buff. 4 seconds is pretty good at level 1. So overall, just buffs all around for Zilean. I hope to see him. He was really annoying just because of how, I don't know, just seeing like how he can just like revive someone that does like extremely stupid things. Like I remember, if you guys remember back to Worlds, Starhorn Royal Club would use him in such a like a very, I think it was interesting but a very aggressive way, where they would just like let Kha'Zix or whoever just jump in and just like take all the damage, revive, and then they would just continue barrel rolling through the team fights. So we might see that kind of stuff again. His E is still very powerful, especially with the buff to it. Buff / nerf last patch. The slow on it is absolutely insane. So we'll see. I would like to see him more in the future. Okay, so mass texture rebalance. This is just like visual updates or downgrades depending on who you ask. We'll see. But overall, not something I'm going to talk about. You can look at the stuff actually at if you really want to see them at on Surrender at 20, or if you want to look in game as well. I don't know if they updated it. Chalice of Harmony, cheaper. Okay. So this is actually again a buff to Athene's, because before, I don't know what the, let's look it up real quick. Chalice Harmony. So if you guys ever want to see what the values of different things were in the past, just go to the LoL wiki. Usually, I'm pretty sure all this stuff is accurate, and you can see all the patch changes in the past. So things like this, a nerf to the magic resist, things like that. So you can see all the changes. Where was it? Okay, there it is. Total cost increased to 1,000 from 880. This brings it back to where it used to be. It just makes it easier to buy, so you can go back earlier, so you don't have to worry about getting bursted down by a really aggressive mage like LeBlanc or champions like Xerath. So again, we'll talk about the whole like context of this after we talk about Athene's. More mana regeneration. Okay, finally. Like this is something I've been waiting for a while. Mainly this one. This one is just like an added benefit. What I see Athene's as is a mana regeneration item first. The magic resist is just a secondary benefit. The mana regeneration is why people got it, and obviously the cooldown, but that's the same as Morellonomicon, 20%. You get this for mana regeneration, and you get for Morellonomicon for more damage and the utility of the health debuff. But the thing is, for the longest time, after the rework or after the new season, this had less mana regen than Morellonomicon until late game, because it depends on your maximum mana. So I think I can go back here just to show you. Where is it? Okay, so change to restore 1.5% of missing mana. So it depends on how high your mana pool is. So if you have like a Roa with this, it's huge. But if you don't, it's really bad. It's actually lower than Morellonomicon for most of the game until late game. where your mana pool is just higher just based on just scaling stats off of levels. So this is actually, it's on par with what Athene's or what Rel'Nomicon is, which is at least something you could say. Like, there's no reason it should have been 50% for so long. Like, I don't even understand. So now this is more of a defensive and spammy kind of item, while Rel'Nomicon more damage, health debuff. It's still gonna be a good item. It's still cheaper than Athene's, but now they're more like equal in power. This is more expensive, gives you more spamability, and I don't know, just overall more in line where it should be with the cost. I mean, let me see the cost of it just to be sure. I don't know if it says here, but oh wait, yeah, let's go to Athene's. There we go. So yeah, so the cost of this is 2,700. That's higher than Rel'Nomicon, which I think is 2,400. Rel'Nomicon. Let's go through that. 2,300. So it's, I mean, 2,300. Yeah, so it's still a good deal more expensive. So I think it deserves this buff. This I don't know too much about. Just like some theory crafting, you can think about like champions. I know it. The problem with Kassadin, I was gonna mention Kassadin. The problem with Kassadin is that he needs more items before he goes like full mana, like crazy. The popular build was Roa into, or like tier into Catalyst into Roa, just so you can get that late game spike or whatever. The thing is that took so long that it just wasn't worth it because Kassadin was just so weak in the early laning phase, so people just skip that. I can maybe see this as a 6th item, just because of like how Kassadin works. He's very snowballing in a team fight. He gets a kill, he W's to get more mana, he kills someone, 30% extra mana. That's absolutely insane. So you can just like go insane in team fights. This is actually what I used to go on Kassadin before, just so I can like be unstoppable in team fights. The 20% extra CDR really helped too, but that's just like a preference kind of thing. We'll see. I don't think I don't know about Kassadin. Kassadin's still going to be played, but this might bring him back. I doubt it though. People still go the Roa into like Zanya's or Death Cap, like full damage or whatever. He still needs too many items before he can get something like this. Maybe a 6th item. We'll see. Righteous Glory, whoops. Fix the bug where you wouldn't get the active movement speed running towards turrets and capture points. Okay, didn't know that. Righteous Glory is still a great item. I guess this is just like a bug fix. That's weird. I thought it was only towards just champions, but okay. I guess it's better now, which wasn't really necessary because I got a buff last time. It's an amazing item. Great initiation tool, 60% movement speed to your whole team when running towards someone. Great health, great mana. Overall, just an amazing item. Nothing to really comment about that. Rift Scuttler, this, okay. Fixed the bug where the Scuttler vision radius was much larger than the speed shrine it was intended to cover. This actually really annoyed me as a jungler. If the other jungler got, or if anyone on the other team got this, because the actual radius, or like the circle that you see for the thing, I guess it's the, I don't know what they call it, but the little ward that pops up once the Scuttle Crab dies, it's much larger than the actual circle the speed shrine is. So I think this is necessary. It shuts down a lot of gank paths that you otherwise could have done. It still gives you that movement speed. Like, this is like what you usually do for Rift Scuttler. You wait before like you maybe get it a little before dragon comes up, so you get that movement speed, initiate, and run away ability that it gives you. Not like the vision is still nice, but it was so huge that it just like covered that whole area. You don't even need a ward for that area for that 1 minute. So I think this is a necessary nerf. It's not really a big deal. It's just like a change that I think was necessary because it just didn't add up to the where the circle actually was. Base gates. You can now summon pets, structures, and minions in your team's base gates. Okay, not a big deal unless you're going like AP Shaco and you're like trying to like mess with people who are trying to siege your base and just kill them instantly. I don't know. Whatever. It's not a big deal. I don't know what the point of that was. Jungle XP. Jungle gives more base experience at higher levels. Whoops. Here, let me just turn off that. Okay. I was reading this and it didn't really make any sense. Okay. In terms of early level progression, we intend for junglers to be somewhere between solo lanes and dual lanes. Successful junglers edging more towards solo lane level progression. Okay, so yeah. Right now, however, jungle experience falls off a little too hard, which means junglers have a tougher time keeping up. These seem like small bumps, but we know these kind of changes can have dramatic impacts, so we're proceeding carefully. Okay, so first thing you need to look at, with successful junglers edging towards solo lane progression. So let's just put down that as like an assumption. We intend for junglers to be somewhere between solo lanes and dual lanes. So why did you increase the experience scaling wise? I mean, don't you want them to be between solo lanes and dual lanes? Why would you increase? Do you want them to be solo lanes? I mean, if you want that, just say it. There's contradictory statements here with successful junglers edging more towards solo lane level progression. So I don't understand what they mean by this. If you want it to be more, if you want it to be a third solo laner, which I honestly I'm fine with that. I'm okay with the jungler being strong. I think that makes it more interesting because junglers kind of, along with the mid lane, kind of direct the focus of or direct the pace of the game, along with the support now because of the roaming meta. It's become more popular with lane swaps. But I don't know. It's just contradictory statements to me. So they're just increasing the experience very slightly for these level differences. So you can take a look at this level 1 through 4 unchanged, which is fine. I think this is where a lot of junglers have problems and where they get capped off at. It's just the jungle was really hard before. Right now it's not as bad, but it's still that's the really difficult part of jungle. Levels 5 through 7, 3% more experience. Levels 8 through 10, 6% more experience. Levels 11 through 18, 10% more experience. So again, more experience for junglers, and for the laners that decide to steal your jungle camps. God, I hate those guys. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, this will actually help laners a lot more than I think Riot Games thinks, because they steal a lot of the Wraiths and the Wolves. Okay, post beta updates. Let's look at this. New champion select music has been added for Summoner's Rift queues. Cool. Just a terrain detail and a number of locations. Okay, so they're just like things that they want to like clean up on Summoner's Rift, and just new music. Beta has been removed from, okay, so it's finally out of beta. It feels like it's been out of beta for a while. Removed call it a teaser. The animated victory defeat screens have been deactivated while we resolve. Okay. The actual animation on the PBE will look different than what I saw on live when they said they were updating it. It actually looks much nicer, and there's like an added sound to it on PBE. I don't know if they just couldn't figure that out, but it looks better on PBE for sure. So we'll have to see. Hopefully they update it to what PBE looks like. Okay, Twisted Treeline, Crystal Scar. I don't really look at this too much because I don't play these two. But Luden's Echo, it's been removed temporarily just because Needless to See Large Rod wasn't an item on those maps, so it was a problem. It didn't make any sense. Okay, ARAM, Howling Abyss. I guess just like a thing for Orb of Winter. Look if Negatron. So they're just making Negatron the item that you build instead of 2 null magic mantles. Not a big deal. So that wraps it up, guys. If you guys want to see this more in the future, just let me know. I really found this fun to do because I like to theory craft a lot of this stuff. I think people look at patch notes and say, oh, buff, nerf, but you have to look at it in the context of a lot of different things and look at the patch notes as a whole. So if you guys like these and the way I go about this, just let me know, and I'll keep doing them. But besides that, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.